You're listening to Beyond the Benchtop, a show about food ingredients. Our conversations go far beyond the lab as we dive into topics spanning from food science to market trends and everything in between.
Welcome back to Beyond the Benchtop. My name is Christy, and I have introduced myself in episodes previous to now, but I have my coworker with me, Todd. Todd, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Todd. I've worked at St. Charles Trading for 22 years. I started in our trucking department. Yes, they did have tires back then. And did that for 2 years. And then I was moved to Texas to go into sales, kind of like a hybrid warehouse guy, quasi-manager, because there was just two of us back then. And it was more like St. Charles was 15 years old when I started the business. And it was a start-up in Texas, but not a real start-up because we had the good financial backing and we had good inventory levels and we had all the procedures in place, but going down there with just one other person, it was kind of the Wild West. And I think the population of Texas was less than 7 million at the time. So it was interesting to watch the state grow. And then I moved back to the Chicago area in 2016, and here we sit now.
Yeah. Are you enjoying the territories over here?
Yeah, you know, they all have unique things about them. The world has changed so much so I cover Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana is where my core customers are in the South, and then up here, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Ohio. And I like Midwest people. You know, I love Texas people. You know, they're very proud and full and big and, you know. But then Louisiana, too. I'll tell you, the hidden gem that is New Orleans. And in New Orleans, first thing pops up, Mardi Gras. You know, I've probably been in New Orleans 125 times in my career, and I don't go into the city very often.
Yeah.
The West Bank, you know, Lake Pontchartrain, all those other areas, because fortunately, being in the business that we're in, selling spices, you talk to people that do a lot of things for local restaurants.
Yeah.
And you find
the food is outrageous.
Oh,
there.
if I showed you pre-New Orleans added to my territory and post-New Orleans started my territory, you can tell I was in New Orleans like every 6 weeks. Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of baby weight added during those trips down there. There was no baby. It was just you fall in love with the cuisine and the people. You know, the Mississippi is an incredible port internally. You know, if you think about how many millions of pounds of product go up and down that river that never gets discussed.
Yeah.
You know, it's vital, and the people are it. If you ever get the chance to go for a non-New Orleans event and talk to the people, you'll fall in love with it. I have a feeling.
Would you say that's kind of where you're predominantly selling to right now?
Mostly the people in the South. You know, there's, you know, I don't know how or why this happened, but somehow my career ended up focusing on spice blenders. And pepper is emotional to a spice blender. You know, they want to know about, it's called piperin, and it's kind of what piperin is the bite inside a pepper of the oil content. If you give someone who's used to a high-quality pepper a lower piperin level, you're done because they think your product's inferior. And here's a more conflicting view of that is if you give someone who's used to a low-quality pepper high piperin, they're going to go, oh, my God, my customers are going to burn their tongues.
Yeah.
So,
because it's very pungent.
It is, but overall, you want to maintain a consistent product, and that's tough, too, because you know, spice trading is the oldest profession in the world. And there's a lot of things that people do to give it a bad name. You know, they cut it with things like peanut shells. Well, when I started in this, peanuts weren't even an allergen.
Yeah.
Now
you have the grade 8, which they just added sesame, so it's just expanding.
And if you put peanut shells in someone, you can cause damage or possibly kill someone.
Right.
So you can't do that anymore.
Right.
You know, so, and the mesh size, you brought up mesh sizes. If you take 10 vendors and they all give you the same 16 mesh, there'll be 10 different.
They will look extremely different.
And I understand why the industry does it, but gosh, if they could somehow regulate what an actual mesh size would be, it probably would make the product less valuable but it would make it a lot easier to sell.
I agree. And it gets difficult because, like you were saying, what might be 16 mesh to one person might actually be, maybe closer to a 34. You really don't know.
And a table grind. What's a table grind?
Yes.
Well, I've been
What's
always
standard. Yeah.
And then they order table grind, and I don't know, because the refinement in this business, you guys are going to joke, and I'm not even kidding you. We used to laugh when someone asked for a COA. We're like, why do they want a COA? We thought that they were being difficult.
Yeah.
That's how far the business has come.
Right.
So when you start talking about all of like I said, the things that are making our different pepper, customers want in their boxes. Well, we're going to put it in our boxes because we're building a brand. Oh, no. It's got to be in our box.
Mm-hmm.
Because we sell 5 boxes, but we use 300 internally, but we still want our name on it. And so you got to navigate those waters. And then, the bad part about it is you would think that, oh my gosh, we're in this business, we got high dollar stuff. So, St. Charles is built on very low cost per pound items.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar when I started cost 34 cents. Salt when I started cost 3 cents. Hard to make a lot of money on 3 cents. Well, then we got this item called black pepper that was $1.50 a pound. I'm
Sure.
like, yes,
Sure.
a transaction that's in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
But it doesn't like heat. Bugs,
Yeah.
in fact, do like to eat it, which you would think a no bug would want it.
Right.
And then in Texas, you had to manage the summers, so you couldn't have a lot of product because that'll also extract the oil,
Yeah.
which makes it not in the product, which means you're sending the customer something that they can't use.
Right.
And oh, by the way, we got to ship it back to a foreign country 15,000 miles away. So, and that was another thing. You had to
Sure.
you couldn't just go to a local supplier, meaning like in Illinois or Wisconsin, and buy a half truckload and kind of test the waters. It was a sizable investment,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of like the point that you made too, like how in years that have progressed, that there's been kind of a more standard of food quality, food safety, food assurance. And it's probably amazing within that third generation, because think about how much it's changed from that standpoint. I mean, the products are staying the same, but the rules and the regulations, think about how much had to go into that.
it's for the better, because we're
Yeah.
talking about safety. I mean, and people,
Right.
Food can cause, like we talked about earlier, very, very negative impacts to people. But I think when I started, people were still selling black pepper in burlap sacks. I'm not even joking.
Right. And then FASMA came, and
Yeah.
I mean, think about how much has changed, and for the better.
I'll never forget when we got our first container, it backed in, and somehow, some way, when pepper gets shipped in the warm months, there ends up being this like almost smoke created by the product when it's delivered. So when that
Yeah.
container is released, something, with the heat and the black pepper, and it like billowed out,
Wow.
and you could instantly smell it. And this was in not this facility, at a facility that was in Batavia. You would have thought
People are
we were,
sneezing.
Well, no, then it was in the eyes too,
Yeah.
because people they weren't used to it. They were
powerful.
used to, you guys walk in here now, and you're like, I mean, think about the first time you walked in this building.
That's very true.
So it wasn't. It's become more of a significant role, and I'm happy to see it because it is a value add. It's not just a Me Too. It's hard enough to make money in the food industry, but then when you're just trying to compete on what I call the white ingredients, the starches, the sugars, the salts, the things that people are so used to hearing, it's like,
That are more structural.
and that they'll take your business away for, gosh, a quarter cent a pound. Where if you can build something like pepper, where people, the quality is dependent on there because it does matter to the finished product, and also that it's hard to manage.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I don't think International gets enough recognition for how they get something that is dried on the ground. I mean, if you ever look at a black pepper vine, they're like 30 feet tall.
Yeah.
They're all 100% harvested by hand. There is no mechanical equipment in the black pepper industry in 2021. I mean, when you sit there and you think about that, where everything's automated,
There's so many critical control
and they
points.
put them out on tarps,
Right.
and they dry them in the sun, and then they grind it. The only automation is when it hits a grinder.
Right.
So, I mean, and think about how many millions of pounds are harvested still by human beings.
Yeah.
And that's if everything goes right. And then they got to put it on a container, then they got to put it on a boat, and then it's got to figure out a way to get here from all
Yeah.
that stuff. And that's kind of what's always intrigued me about the spice trade was the, if you followed a container around the world, what it would look like. And I mean, it's pretty interesting where corn's grown in all of our backyard. You know, you're
especially in the West.
Yeah, I mean, we're all used to it.
Right.
So it doesn't have the romance, I guess, as black pepper does, at least for me.
I agree. And then, I mean, once it gets here domestically, too, you have to think about freight. You have to think about all the intrinsic and extrinsic parameters that come into play with that. And it's pretty amazing to be able to maintain that quality.
Well, and with people, you know, it's a foreign country that it's coming from.
Yeah.
So if they say, what if it gets stopped by the USDA?
Yeah.
You know, what if it comes, you know, because they got to get inspected. Eventually your number's going to get pulled. You know, how do you inspect a container of black pepper? You can't just open it up and go, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no foreign material in there or anything like that. You know, you got to unload it. Or worse, which they're smart, they make us unload it and then hold it here. So now you've got all this inventory tied up that you can't sell.
Definitely.
And then the volatility, you know, there was, I think in 2013, or maybe it's a little later than that. You know, black pepper has always kind of been that 85 cent to $2.25. Well, then there was a flood and a world shortage, and it went to $5.
Yeah.
Well, if you're buying 1 million pounds of black pepper, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually not, how do you afford that? I
Yeah.
can tell you it was not fun. I mean, from a professional standpoint, it was a very successful year for my territory. From a personal standpoint,
Yeah.
I've had a relationship with these people at that point, 10, 12 years, and where do I find an extra $3 million, Todd?
Right. When there's no availability, where do you even go from there?
And then from a business standpoint, you're like, well, this person over here who's really successful that doesn't have a money crunch wants it, but our loyalty is to you.
Yeah.
So you have to navigate those things too. So it sounds like it's just, you know, a spice in a bag, but there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah, the shortages are really where I feel like it becomes so difficult to manage.
It's tough because, you know, I've always said if the phone doesn't ring or the ink in the printer's not there, you're fine. If you're a food business, you can go get a cell phone. You can run to Target and get more ink. But if the ingredients don't show up, you can't make anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to over-importantize what we do. It's just a fact. You know, no matter what, if the product that is purchased to help make the whatever the finished goods are taste different, if it doesn't show up, you shut down.
Production can't run. Products can't be created.
Jobs don't get fulfilled.
Exactly.
People don't go to work that day.
Right.
Lawsuits happen. All sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. Just keeps pinballing
Yeah,
down.
it just keeps getting more and more and more wonderful. Yeah.
And that's one thing that's pretty amazing, I would say, about St. Charles Trading is being able to navigate when those shortages happen or when there's limited availability. Really great planning, as well as being able to find just different ways to overcome those obstacles.
And the integrity of the business, too.
Exactly.
You know, it is vital that you have a open dialogue and an honest dialogue.
Absolutely.
Because it is a very small industry, and what you say will be used against you. Maybe not in a court of law, but, you know, the market in the South, there's, let's call them 25 blenders that are all about the same size, that make similar products. They all know each other, you know? So if St. Charles has a bad reputation with Company A, it's probably got a bad reputation all the way down through Company Z.
Right.
And word of mouth is not alive like it once was, but it sure as heck isn't dead either.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so that's what this business has always differentiated itself from other distributors, because I don't know how many I've seen come and go over the years, but I can tell you that as we've grown, it's because of the foundation that was set from a moral standpoint. You know, products are products, even if we have the best black pepper in the world. And I think we do, but everybody thinks they do. But I can tell you from a business ethics standpoint, that I know St. Charles does.
Yeah.
And that's what people that are St. Charles Trading core customers, that's why they really buy from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the point that you made about the integrity. I mean, being able to not only treat one customer, but all your customers with that integrity and that kind of level of respect is amazing.
Yeah, and there is no more rewarding feeling as a salesperson when someone you're selling to says, hey, call this person.
Yeah.
You know, it's priceless.
It just goes to show you kind of the relationships that you're able to build and as well as maintain, because that's another point. I mean, it's one thing about building it, but how, you know, after some fiasco that happens, are you able to mend as well as maintain?
And there are fiascos. So there's a lot of trust that's involved, and sometimes things fall in lines. And sometimes employees are upset, whatever it might be, but you just have to go there. I mean,
Right.
I literally drove on a Friday afternoon from Dallas, Texas to McAllen, Texas. And that is not like driving from Chicago to Naperville. That is like driving from Chicago to the moon in the same state. It is that far.
Yeah.
And when you got down there, the customer was mad on Friday morning. When you got down there Friday afternoon because you showed up, customer said, we'll work this out.
Yeah.
Because going there and facing the problem, a lot of people are afraid to do. And we don't. We tackle it head on,
Right.
no matter what item it is.
And that shows a great relationship too. I think one thing that's amazing is I hear about that a lot within this company, people trying to be there face to face and actually work out the problem rather than just be emails, phone calls, text messages. I mean, that goes a long way.
In the world of Zoom, I will tell you that businesses will be broken if they don't put human beings in front of other human beings in a negative situation. I believe that to my core.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's
So
an issue, you can't Zoom it away. But I know that if you want to maintain a relationship with someone, you got to be there with them.
yeah, absolutely. And so that's pretty amazing too that you've still maintained these amazing relationships with your customers even in a year where we couldn't be face to face.
You build it into, you understand their peaks, you understand their valleys. St. Charles Trading's done a really good job of creating systems that allow for superior management for customers.
Absolutely.
So I've got customers who tell me, I don't have a purchasing agent. You're my purchasing agent. You are my inventory. It's like, don't mess it up because I'll go find someone else that does.
Sure.
But, they literally lean on us to keep their system running and make their company run more efficiently.
Right, and it's not just the service too. I think they'll really be able to see the quality of the product as well as it's safe. I mean, there's a lot, like you were saying before, a lot of moving parts with pepper production. So a lot of critical control points, a lot of points that need to be quality and fact checked almost, making sure that it's up to par and as well as consistent with the FASMA regulations and everything. So I think it's pretty amazing that they'll be able to move forward and say, okay, we were really pleased with not only the service, but the product itself as well. Well, thank you so much,
Yeah, you're
Todd,
welcome.
for
Thanks for having me.
coming in today. You gave us a lot of useful information. I appreciate it.
It was
And
great to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening. Follow or subscribe so you can always catch the latest episode. For more information, check out our website at stcharlestrading.com.